welcome back to another episode of Why I Love BNI, your podcast spotlighting different BNI members on their business, their BNI journey, and then sharing their kind of tips and tricks and hacks for BNI. So I'm super excited to have my guest, Ian, with us today. And thank you so much for the time today. I really appreciate it.
Really happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Well, Anne is with the very, very big chapter up in St. Augustine, Moneymakers, am I right? Oh my
That's
gosh,
correct.
they're a killer group of what, 80 plus members at this point? Like that's
Yeah,
incredible.
we're getting up there.
That's incredible. That's awesome. And Anne and I had a lovely one-to-one a few weeks ago, and she was just sharing all about her expertise on how she really helps people feel better, not just internally, but externally, and all the different ways that she helps people. So I'm super excited to kind of share a little bit what she's doing. So, Anne, again, thank you so much for coming on. Why don't you kick us off and just tell me a little bit about your business and how you help people?
Absolutely. Thank you. So my practice is called Wellness with Anne. It's based here in St. Augustine. I have a practice here in St. Augustine, and it's a very unique form of body work. It's called Ortho-Bionomy,
Mm,
and it helps to release tension patterns in your muscles and in your joints and really in all your body's systems. It helps to restore the movement of fluids as well. And the techniques are very simple. They're painless. That's the one thing my clients like is they're not sore the next day. They get to keep their clothes on. And with that, I've been successfully able to address many issues that are going on for people that are in chronic pain or they have, other issues that are going in their body going on. So yeah.
that's
um,
awesome. Yeah, you're able to address, because I think a very common problem sometimes people have is when they go to sometimes to feel better, like different massages or something like that, they feel good for maybe 5 hours and then eventually they're just kind of back to square one. But what you do, you really want to address those pain issues and where the source is from. And then, of course, with a few different types of sessions, you're able to help them start implementing some exercises that they don't have to carry that every single day. Am I correct?
Yeah, it depends on the person too and how long
Sure.
they've had that tension pattern. But what I find in orthobionomy, I'm working with the nervous system. And
Mm.
so when I position the body in a certain way, it helps to remind the body of its natural capacity to self-correct. So the body kind of learns from that. It's very intelligent.
That's
And it
so
learns
cool.
from that. And often what can happen is those patterns don't come back or they're less
Mhm.
or the client doesn't have to, keep coming every single week.
That's so cool. I don't know if it's just like maybe modern medicine or something, but I think it's very easy for us to forget how smart our body is and how in tune it can get and how intuitive it is when it comes to things like this. So it's just so cool to hear that there are practices out there to kind of remind our body to wake it up, get back into motion.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Your body is just an amazing, amazing organism.
It's just so cool to hear. I mean, I'm not even that big into science. I don't know that much, but every time I learn something new, I'm like, I don't have any other words other than that's incredible. I'm gonna keep repeating myself, unfortunately. But I'd love to hear a little bit about your BNI journey. So what brought you to BNI in the first place?
Well, my husband and I moved to St. Augustine in 2016,
Hmm.
and he talked me into it. I didn't really want to move because I had a practice in Gainesville. I'd been there for the last 20 odd years. And I didn't know anybody in town, and I knew I would need to regrow my practice and start networking again. And I was at a women's networking luncheon, and I met someone there that was in BNI, and she invited me to come to her chapter, and it turned out to be the Moneymakers chapter. And I was really shy back then, so um, that group was so big, it felt so overwhelming. I ended up joining a smaller chapter for a little while.
Mm.
And then the opportunity came up for me to join Moneymakers again, and I did. And I've been with them ever since. And it's just been amazing. It's really helped me to grow personally and professionally. My practice is doing very well. And what else would you like me to tell you?
I mean, so how long have you been in BNI? How many years? Or how many years have you
Well,
been in
let's see.
Moneymakers?
In Moneymakers, uh, I joined BNI in 2016, December of 2016, and I was
Hmm.
in that smaller chapter for about a year and a half.
Hmm.
So I want to say 2018, somewhere around there.
Wow. So you've been
Yeah.
with Moneymakers almost 6 years by then.
Yeah.
That's awesome. What have you really loved about being a part of Moneymakers? Because you've been there for 6 years. There's clearly something that you love about it.
Oh, it's an amazing chapter. The people there are wonderful. We support each other, we help each other. The whole philosophy about giver's gain is so true.
Mm,
And yeah, I've made personal friendships there and professional relationships there as well. It's
that's
wonderful.
perfect. Yeah. And what I don't know if I've specifically heard this, but I think something that can come up with people and when they hear about, someone being in a chapter for very long is like, what is the point almost? Why would you keep going? Every single week you know these people, but it's something different because you're able to form a strong relationship and you want to keep that relationship, right?
Yeah, it's different. I mean, we do meet every week and it does sound like a commitment, which it is, but it's worth it.
Mm,
Um, Visibility is important. People know that you're going to be there. They
mm-hmm,
need to know that. I also go to other networking groups, and honestly, I don't get as many referrals because we only meet once a month,
right.
person, and sometimes it's more oriented towards selling towards each other instead of supporting each other.
Exactly.
Although I do have to say there's one other group that I belong to that's necessarily not the case. But
Sure.
when we meet every week, we're there to listen to each other's sales manager minute and learn how we can refer to each other.
That's so cool. I didn't know you guys called it your sales manager minute.
Oh, I call it that.
Oh, okay.
I
I
don't know
love
if it's a
that
different
though.
word, but I call it that.
I absolutely love that because it's really important for people to know. And I know another saying in BNI is specific is terrific, right? And sometimes
Specific
we're like,
word.
we can help everyone. I just want to help everyone. And that, I mean, we can. But sometimes, I've been in a BNI meeting where someone goes, oh, I want to talk to a home inspector. And I'm like, oh, duh, I should have known they want to talk to a home inspector, but I'm glad they mentioned that. I know a few home inspectors. Let me go connect them right now. So it's small things like that during your meetings that you're able to really hone in and people, you never know who knows who.
Yeah, exactly. And whenever you're out there socializing or whatever, you hear somebody say, "Oh, I need a painter." You immediately think of the painter in your chapter. I know
Exactly.
that. And so when you hear them every week, it kind of starts to embed itself in your brain. So the answer comes up automatically. It's like, "Oh, let me put you in touch with this person."
Hmm. I think a very
Yeah.
common misconception too when it comes to the big BNI groups, because I'm in a similar-ish size BNI, is people like, oh, you can't possibly know who's in your group. You can't possibly know anyone. But I mean, I've been there a year. I know everyone for the most part. I know what they do. If I see something on Facebook, I'm gonna tag them. I remember who they are. I remember we have a handyman. I remember we have an esthetician, chiropractor. It's so easy for me because I've been seeing them
Yeah.
so often for the past year that I'm like, yeah, of course I remember my chiropractor. I know who's in our group.
Hmm.
I notice when people move. I notice when people don't show up. I always text people. I'm like, hey, I'm not saying, I'm mad at you, but I miss you. I hope you're okay this week. Everything's good. I notice when people do those things. So it really becomes a family.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah,
It also gives you credibility when you show up every week.
definitely. I noticed that of course as well. And those leaders too. They're always so cool. Pretty we have a great group of people who are always leading the pack and showing a really great example of giver's gain.
Hmm.
So you've been in BNI for, you said, since 2016, December 2016, which it's December 2024 now, so that's
8 years.
crazy. What tips do you have for us newer BNI members? Maybe kind of
Um,
hacks or just
yeah.
anything you have.
Well, some tips, it's not always easy to talk in a large group of people
Mm,
and you don't know what to say. So I have learned to prepare my own little script. I write it down. I refine it. I time myself so
mm,
I know how many seconds I have to deliver it. And then I practice it. I actually practice it. Yep, I listen to the BNI podcast, learning podcast, and yeah, practicing makes perfect. And so every time it delivers easily because it's in my brain now, and I'm not
right.
going to get tongue-tied, that kind of thing. So that's one thing that has been very helpful for me. And I keep those on file. So every time I need to come up with something, I just look it up on my computer and say, oh, I think I'm going to talk about this today.
Exactly.
That's one tip. The other tip is, let's see, um, follow the steps because they work.
Definitely. I know there's a
Mhm.
lot of people who want to go out there, they want to join BNI and they want to kind of reinvent the wheel, but the wheel was there for a
Yeah.
reason. The steps are there for a reason. And just doing the basics, like my dad recently learned, he's been in BNI for a year as well. He's like, I didn't even realize the formula to stay in the green was one CEU, one one-to-one, and one referral a week. He's like, I didn't even realize that was what it was. And I'm like, yeah, it's pretty simple. He's like, I had no idea, but it makes so much sense. When you look at
Yeah.
this, you're like, oh, well, I should be doing this anyways. I should be meeting with someone for once a week. I should be listening to a podcast that'll help better my business. And I should be looking for referrals to give and, stuff like that and following up on my referrals.
Yeah. It sounds overwhelming in the beginning initially. How am I going to do all that, every week? But
I
you just
know.
start doing that. You just start doing it, and then it just becomes almost automatic.
It really does. Like, I'm definitely at a point where I don't ever have to think about how many one-to-ones I need to get because I'm just automatically scheduling them. I'm like, I want to connect with you. I want to learn about your business. I want to see how I can refer you. I get so excited, and you just never know. Like, I'm so glad we got our one-to-one, and I've had different one-to-ones. I'm like, oh gosh, I need to
Yeah.
connect you with her, or vice versa. And I mean, that's just really the secret is being excited to connect with other businesses, other people in your chapter, cross chapter, because we're in different chapters and we're still having a great conversation. So you never
Yeah.
know who knows someone and what kind of connection you can form.
You never know, which is another reason why I also go to other networking groups because it gets me an opportunity to meet other people and also to talk about BNI and
Exactly.
maybe bring them in as a visitor if they want to see what it's about. Yeah. And the CEUs, one way I do it is I listen to them when I'm driving or cooking.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I love to bake. That's the time when I listen to those things because I can really go into the zone, but I have something listening to that. I'm like, oh my
Mhm.
gosh, that's such a good idea. I had never thought of that. And then I'm like baking and frosting a cupcake, stuff like that.
Cool.
That's so fun. Well, Anne, thank you so much for coming on and spending a few minutes with me. I really appreciate you. You're doing some incredible stuff. We didn't even I hope people know we barely touched the surface when it comes to stuff that she does. She's incredible. So I'll make sure I have all of her information in the description. People can click, copy and paste to reach out just a little bit easier. So, Anne, thank you so much for spending some time with me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Macy.
Of course. And to everyone watching, I really appreciate you as well. And I'll see you next time. Bye.